Howdy, my name is Alaric Hutchinson, author of Living Peace, and just a quick background, I've spent my entire adult life learning and teaching skills on how to cultivate inner peace and really looking at understanding the human dilemma of our emotions and behaviors and how they lead to conflict and how we can reconcile that conflict, not only in the home but in our communities and of course in our own hearts. Today, I wanted to share a very important universal message in response to the political climate here in America. But this can be used in any country, either past or future, that may be experiencing civil unrest. And so even if you're watching not from America, there is still benefit in this video. Later on, I'll be sharing a story to summarize everything that captures the essence of what I'm talking about. And it's a story by Thich Nhat Hanh from his book At Home in the World. In short, though, my message is to make sure that we never justify violence or never justify violence under the guise of patriotism. And it's been really fascinating living in America this year and meeting people from all walks of life who have expressed that they've felt hate in their heart for the first time. And that's just, I get emotional even just thinking about that this year, hate has taken seed in a lot of people's hearts where it previously wasn't there. And again, it doesn't matter what political side, religious side, national side, any category or group you could put people in, there's a universal commonality of suffering, and feeling hate within the heart is one of them. And even within myself, I've noticed more anger rise up within me this year more than any other year of my life. And I've been really practicing my own peace practice and these teachings to be able to breathe through it and understand where it's coming from, so I do not accidentally spill it onto the world around me. And I would say I've done a decent job doing that, actually quite a good job doing that, but I still myself have suffered because of it. Going back to not justifying violence, it's interesting how nearly all the world religions teaches nonviolence, and how we can open any history book and see how violence and during social unrest creates even more suffering. It's literally adding harm on top of the already harm present. We're going out of our way to create more harm on the planet where there is already harm existing. But what's even more important is how, when we're bringing violence and calling it patriotism, we're really squashing any ability to have a voice at the table. And so understanding, reconciliation, bridge building all stops the moment that we bring violence into the equation. And so for those of you who might be struggling with anger or even hate, resentment, any negative emotion that may manifest in a physically harmful way, this story is for you. And it also will apply for people who are just mentally feeling the stress and angst and the emotional weight that's going on. So I'll go ahead and read this story by Thich Nhat Hanh called Mindfulness in the Battle Zone. In 1968, I went to the United States to call for a cessation of the U.S. bombing in Vietnam. In May of that year, the bombing of Saigon had become so fierce that the whole area around the campus of the School of Youth for Social Service had been destroyed. More than 10,000 refugees came to our campus, many of them wounded, and we had to take care of them. We were not all equipped for this in terms of food, basic hygiene, or medical supplies, and it was very dangerous to travel outside the campus to get provisions. When we had used up our supply of bandages, the young women tore up their long dresses in order to make more bandages. In this desperate situation, we had to evacuate the seriously wounded from our campus. but to do so we had to cross the battle zone to bring them to the hospital. We decided to use a five-colored Buddhist flag to replace the Red Cross flag. The monks and nuns put on their monastic ceremonial robes and carried out the wounded. The Buddhist flag with the robes signaled that we were a peaceful group. Fortunately, it worked, and we were able to evacuate the patients. Otherwise, many would have died. On the third day of the bombing, panic broke out in our overcrowded campus. There was a rumor that the anti-communists were going to bomb the school because there were so many communists among the refugees. When people heard this, many started to collect their belongings and leave, but the bombing was so heavy they were driven back. The communists and the anti-communists were fighting at the very edge of our campus. At that moment, Taitan Bon, a 25-year-old monk and the school's director, took a large megaphone and was about to announce that people should not leave when he suddenly asked himself, what if the bombing really does take place? Thousands of people would die, and how could he, a young monk, bear such responsibility? So he slowly put down the megaphone and did not make the announcement. Taitan Bon realized that he needed to speak to both the warring parties. To do this, he had to crawl across the firing zone in order to avoid being shot by either side. First, he went to the anti-communists and persuaded the commanding officer to instruct their planes not to bomb the campus filled with refugees. Then he went to the communist guerrillas who had set up an anti-aircraft guns right at the corner of their campus. He asked them not to shoot at enemy planes, otherwise the campus would be bombed in retaliation. Both sides were moved by his request and did as he asked. It was a miracle. On this mission, he did not carry anything with him except his courage, love, and compassion. In a situation like that, you have to be extremely mindful. Sometimes you have to react quickly while remaining calm. If you are angry or suspicious, you cannot do it. You have to be clear-minded. In the context of war, we grew deeper in our practice of nonviolence. Nonviolence is not a set of techniques that you can learn with your intellect. Nonviolent action naturally arises from the compassion, lucidity, and understanding you have within. Let's breathe that in. I get emotional just reading that. He did not carry anything with him except his courage, love, and compassion. And that really speaks to me, thinking of all the people, a lot of people in protests bringing weapons to supposedly peaceful protests. And this feeling like we need to constantly defend ourselves from each other. A teaching I teach a lot in Living Peace is the understanding of non-duality, transcending this idea of right, wrong, good, bad. That does not mean we transcend polarity of harm, healing. There is harm and there is healing action. But when we take a step back from judging other people as wrong and bad and demonize them, it allows us to cultivate compassion. And so what I loved about that monk, that 25-year-old monk, he was able to talk to both warring parties, the communists and the anti-communists, and not view them as wrong or bad individuals. And that's how he was able to build that bridge. Because as was said, if there was suspicion or anger in his heart, that bridge could not have been built, and so many people would have died because of it. So going back to the message of this video, please share with your friends and family that we must never allow violence to take up root within our hearts and then manifest into the physical reality around us. And call it patriotism or call it whatever. Even sometimes it takes place under religious righteousness. Justifying harmful behavior for the sake of some greater good. But all that does is hurt more and more people, and it keeps negotiations, diplomacy, reconciliation off the table for a longer period of time. So no matter how angry you may feel, or no matter how angry someone may be towards you talking to you, we must practice understanding, we must practice compassion, we must practice reconciliation. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and blessed be.